We do have some breaking news just this morning. South Korea says North Korea has blown up an inter-Korean liaison office building just north of the border between the two countries. According to the Associated Press, North Korea had threatened to demolish the office as it stepped up its fiery rhetoric over South Korea's failure to stop activists from flying propaganda leaflets across the border. This video from the South Korean Ministry of Defense shows the moment the bombing took place. The move by North Korea comes as the United States and North Korea remain deadlocked on nuclear diplomacy. Join us now from London, NBC News senior international correspondent Keir Simmons. Keir, good morning. So what exactly happened here?
Hey, Willie. Well, Willie, I mean, this is symbolic and also, I think, potentially serious, not least for President Trump as he heads towards the election in November. This inter-Korean liaison office was set up in 2018 amid much fanfare. It was a symbol of peace. Now it's been reduced to rubble. There is, Willie, the kind of North Korean Kremlinology, if you like. So the threat to do this was made by Kim Jong Un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, and you know, I think it's a sign of the tension inside North Korea. For example, coronavirus, they've had to close their borders. That would have had real economic impact. They're angry, ostensibly, about balloons being sent across the border from the south with USBs in them, with news from South Korea, with even dollar bills in them. But I think more broadly, there is deep frustration in North Korea, in Pyongyang, about the stalemate with President Trump and with President Moon of South Korea. I think you've got to remember how much Kim Jong Un invested in that relationship and in those talks, and there hasn't been progress now for some time. So, you know, I think in the months to come, what's being threatened is the kind of classic escalation by North Korea to get attention, Willie.
We should point out there was nobody in the building. It was closed at the time of the explosion. It had been closed because of coronavirus for several months. NBC's Keir Simmons. Keir, thank you very much.
Tensions are high after North Korea demolished a building used to host talks with South Korea. And tonight, the regime is threatening military action. CBS's Margaret Brennan reports.
The statement from North Korea was not subtle, blowing up the Office for Diplomacy in Kaesong that it had opened in 2018 with South Korea and making good on a threat issued by Kim Yo-jong, Kim Jong Un's increasingly powerful sister. She also said troops are preparing to surge into the DMZ. That's where President Trump took a symbolic step into North Korea last year to shake hands with Kim Jong Un.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
But diplomacy has stalled. The regime continues to test short-range missiles and has produced enough nuclear material for dozens of weapons. North Korea said today's actions were provoked by South Korean activists who had sent anti-Kim leaflets cross-border. The Trump administration called the actions counterproductive. Careful language meant to keep alive President Trump's signature foreign policy initiative. North Korea often ratchets up tension in election years in the hope of extracting concessions. Former CIA analyst Jung Pak.
I think that we are in for a potentially a wild ride in June as North Korea and the Kim family tries to show strength for internal and external audiences.
Margaret Brennan, CBS News, Washington.
Some breaking news from the Korean Peninsula this morning. Simmering tensions have boiled over. This is brand new video, new military surveillance video into us, and it shows Kim Jong Un's regime blowing up a joint border liaison office, which is inside North Korea. This is a very symbolic target. This is an office designed to promote relations with Seoul, and the explosion is being viewed mostly as something domestic following multiple threats to take action against leaflet and food drops coming into the north from the south. Bruce Harrison is a freelance reporter who's tracking the developments for us from Seoul.
Well, I've seen the same pictures you have, Heather. We've seen the smoke. South Korea's Unification Ministry, which deals with inter-Korean cooperation, also said they heard the explosion, and it was shortly after they confirmed North Korea had in fact blown up this building. It was a space where North and South Koreans had been meeting since late 2018, following some deals between leader Kim Jong Un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in. There was hopes they would use that space to build ties, baby steps, sports, forestry, projects like that, but nothing really ever came to fruition. And nobody had been in that office actually since January, when everybody had left over concerns about the COVID-19 pandemic. So nobody had been there. And in recent days, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's sister, Kim Yo-jong, had called the building useless, and she had suggested they would be shutting it down. In the days before that, she had targeted activists here in South Korea, saying their activities were greatly angering the North, primarily by sending anti-North Korea propaganda across the border using hydrogen and helium balloons to fly leaflets containing these anti-state messages, sometimes food as well. It's been a common practice for years. South Korea responded that it was going to put laws into place to prevent this. It even put police at the border. But North Korea obviously not satisfied with the South's response. And now we have this explosion across the border and the demolition of a building that, yes, you said, was symbolic in President Moon's peace efforts on the peninsula.
I note, Bruce, you mentioned some of the early responses we've heard from South Korea. As we've been talking, Reuters is reporting the presidential office in South Korea saying it will respond sternly if North Korea continues to raise tensions after destroying this office. So what about the wider implications for this, not just, I suppose, with South Korea, but more broadly for the West and notably with the United States?
It would be interesting to see what South Korea means by sternly. At this time, this is not necessarily a military provocation. This was the destruction of a building, but it was not a weapons test or a strike on the South Korean people or any of this territory. I think it would take something much stronger, perhaps a weapons test, to seek a show of force by the United States military to get involved in something like this. This is really between North and South in regards to their communications and their relationships, their cooperative projects.
That is freelance reporter Bruce Harrison from Seoul. Immediately after the explosion, South Korea convened an emergency meeting of its National Security Council. We'll be watching for any further response from the government there.
I'm Brian Thomas. Great to have you with us today. South Korea has accused the North of blowing up a joint liaison office near the border between those two countries. The office, seen here when it was opened in 2018, handles inter-Korean relations. It's situated in the town of Kaesong, that's just north of the border. The explosion comes as tensions between the two sides escalate over a leafleting campaign. Pyongyang is furious at Seoul's failure to stop activists from airdropping propaganda over the border into the north. Okay, let's get up to date on this breaking news story from correspondent Frank Smith joining us from South Korea's capital, Seoul. Good day to you, Frank. What's the latest? What caused this incident?
Well, this is really an escalation of what had been kind of an ongoing campaign from North Korea to protest against the leafleting that you mentioned, the flying of balloons across the border by a couple of NGOs, one led by Park Sung-hak, who I interviewed recently, and one led by Park Jung-ho, his brother, who sends North Korea rice in bottles by the ocean currents periodically. These two activists, North Korean defectors, routinely do this to get the message to North Koreans that they would like to see them rise up against what they see as a corrupt Kim dynasty in North Korea. Of course, this has infuriated the North, with Kim Yo-jong, leader Kim Jong-un's brother, issuing this statement just on Saturday night. She says, before long, a tragic scene of the useless North-South Joint Liaison Office completely collapsed would be seen. So we did have some warning that this explosion would take place.
So all of this, the pushing, the tensions, we've seen rising over the past few days.
Yes, that's correct. And it's not likely to die down soon. As I mentioned, I spoke with the leaders of these two NGOs, Bak Sang-hak and Bak Jung-ho. Both of them say they're going to continue with their campaigns, despite the efforts of the South Korean government to prevent them with police trying to block their roads to their access points to fly these leaflets and rice and messages into North Korea. So it's possible we could see an escalation of tension here on the Korean Peninsula.
Some of the latest threats that we've been seeing from North Korea have been attributed to Kim Yo-jong. She's the sister of North Korean leader, of course, Kim Jong Un. What do you make of that?
Well, that's very correct. It is important to take a look at this. It's kind of the rise of Kim Yo-jong. If we remember just a month or two ago when the rumors about Kim Jong-un's grave illness and possible death had come out that proved to be false, actually we were talking about who might be the next leader of North Korea. And of course, Kim Yo-jong was front and center. I interviewed experts here in the South Korean capital at that time, and they said, if we see propaganda out of North Korea praising Kim Yo-jong, putting her forward as a spokesperson of North Korea, then the game for the throne would be over, and Kim Yo-jong would be the presumptive heir to the leadership of North Korea. And that's very possible that we're seeing now.
Frank, so thanks so very much for that.